to the Filmcast review of Him. I'm going to read the plot summary of this movie from IMDb. A young athlete descends into a world of terror when he's invited to train with a legendary champion whose charisma curdles into something darker. End quote. This is a movie that is directed by Justin Tipping. Devindra Hardwar, I'll start with you today. What did you think about Him?
You know, I think this movie was a great trailer. I think the trailer for this movie sold me on, oh man, look at the cool visuals here. Produced by Jordan Peele. It looks compelling, looks interesting. Marlon Wayans back in like a dramatic role too. All seem compelling. I feel like this is one of those things, we've talked about the BMW films, Dave, and like how interesting those things were. Those were short films starring Clive Owen, really simple idea. You get in and out. They tell some really interesting stories. This is essentially a BMW film worth of story in this short movie. And I think it would have been better served if it was like a 5 or 10 minute, really opulent visually intensive short film as a feature film. It is kind of a mess, kind of a huge mess. And it's a shame because I do like Justin Tipping. He directed some of Flatbush Misdemeanors. He's worked on things I've enjoyed before. And he's somebody that I think clearly has a good eye, but the script is just kind of weak. There's just not much going on here. I will say, Marlon Wayans, incredible. Like he is definitely hamming it up a bit, but also I think there are aspects of this movie where he is like genuinely great, and also he looks amazing. And I'm hoping for some sort of like dramatic comeback for him. Like he is the him of this movie for me.
Dude is 53 years old.
Insane.
Looks amazing. He has a physique I aspire to for my age, and I'm quite a little bit younger than him. And not only that, he is delivering menace and terror in his role in this movie as Isaiah White. Huge fan of Marlon Wayans in this film, and it's not like a lot of the performances that we see from him. Or that we know him from. Like most of the stuff we know him from is comedic performances. Of course, he was also in Requiem for a Dream. He was good in
That's
that
what
as
I
well.
keep coming back to. Is like I don't think his career never really had the chance to like dive more into that and what he did there.
Yeah. So he is great in this film. But yeah, mostly known for comedic performances. All that said, Jeff Kanata, I'm really curious. What did you think of Him?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say what I thought of Him is best summed up in the form of a limerick.
All right, let's hear about it, Jeff.
The teaming of horror and sport seems brilliant, but I must report it's like first and goal in the Super Bowl. But somehow this film comes up short.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with everything Devindra said. I'd go further. I think this movie is a waste of everybody's time.
Wow.
And it's a bummer because the notion of pairing sports with horror, I know it's not that it's never been done, but it certainly hasn't been done in a big mainstream way. And it's a really cool opportunity. I think I would venture to say of the three of us, I'm the biggest football fan here.
Yep.
I certainly build right now we're in the midst of it. Third week of the season just happened this last weekend. I'm a huge 49er fan. I build my Sundays around it. I think there is a lot of real estate to be, mined for how horrific this thing can be. What athletes do to their bodies, what the drive to succeed above all things, to win. Like there is a way to take that and twist it into a horror concept that would really, I think, resonate and be powerful and be awesome. And for like the first 10 minutes of this movie, I thought that's where we were going.
Yeah.
It really seemed promising. There was some really cool stuff established. I mean, there's a really harrowing sort of pre-title card thing that happens that is just never followed up on. And so much of this movie seems so scattershot and disorganized, and there's no through line. There's nothing to grasp onto. I never at any point am really aware of what anybody wants at any given time and why I'm here. And it sort of devolves into this sort of dreamscape, this kind of like, nothing. What is real? What is not? What's going on? Where are we? Which can work in, especially in the horror context. That can be interesting. It just never is in this movie for me. I wish the movie was about something. Like, it's not about anything, in my opinion. It really feels like if they just latched onto any idea, what is Marlon Wayans' character really after here? Why are we doing this? What's our way through it? What are we as an audience supposed to take away? It just feels like there's none of that. It's kind of going through the motions. And some of those motions had the hints of being really interesting. Like, for example, I won't spoil anything, but there's a machine that we have all seen before that launches a football at high speed. That machine that has, 2 wheels on either side, and it shoots a football, and then it's so wide receivers can practice catching, right? Whoa, what if that was a scary, frightening horror device? That's an interesting idea. And this movie kind of flirts with it, but doesn't go anywhere. Like, there are this iconography, the mythos around sport that is just ripe for finding horror in it. And I was like, wow, well, this could be really cool. And it just, man, falls completely flat. And I think just wastes everybody's time, sadly.
I disagree with Jeff that it's not about anything. I mean,
it tries.
I think it is it's making a very, is facile the right word, right? It's making a very like obvious point about, hey guys, what if football was like a religion for real?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, thank you for that. Like, it's not a particularly trenchant or interesting point, I think.
Well, and also that it can't be about that if it doesn't have anything to say about that.
Correct. I agree with you, Jeff. Like, it kind of states that, and then it's like, and that's most of it, right? That's kind of it. And what's so sad is that I think the first 30, I would say more than 10, I would say the first 30 minutes of this movie are really solid. Like, I kind of, I get what it's trying to do. I'm like, I understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Looks great. It looks amazing.
The audience, I think, I once read this, I think we were talking about Conan O'Brien talking about his craft. I'm recalling what this was, and it was like, and he was talking about like good interviews and bad interviews, and he was basically saying like the audience wants you to succeed, right? Like when you get up on stage and you're interviewing someone, the audience wants you to succeed. Like, everyone wants to have a good time, and they're willing to forgive a lot. And I'm sitting down in the theater and I'm watching the first 20, 30 minutes of this movie. It's very stylishly directed. I think the cast is great overall. There's some really great aspects to this film. And I, as the audience member, I want the film to succeed. I'm like, I understand what you're trying to do. I'm on board for it. I want you to succeed. That is how I feel. And then basically weird shit happens and it's not really fully explained. I think one of the things that, in my opinion, where this movie's fundamental failure is that it is not fully grounded in reality. That's the problem, I think. Is that there's stuff that happens where it's unclear. It's not plausibly something that would really happen the way it happens in our real world, or there's stuff that happens and you're not sure if it was in a dream or not, right? And by the end, as Jeff indicated, it just becomes super impressionistic. Just we're showing you a bunch of images and sounds and sights, and you're not sure like to what degree any of this is real, and as a result, it's really hard for me to emotionally invest in.
I get that. I feel like you can be fantastical and still be interesting. I'm thinking of like Black Swan, which I think is a really good counterpoint to this movie, and very similar thematically too, in terms of the destruction an athlete will do to their body to be the best at their craft.
Right.
And that is a lot of it here. The Marlon Wayans character is interesting. Like, the idea of like somebody who was the greatest, does he actually want somebody new to succeed, or does he want to do whatever it takes to stay in the limelight as long as possible? Those are all interesting things. I think there are actually some scenes where he does it really well, but the movie cannot hold on to itself. It cannot keep that message, and the script is just such a mess that it's hard to really like hold on to anything, like you're saying, Jeff.
Yeah, and let me be clear. Like, I understand horror movies have supernatural elements to them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like you can't have anything weird or supernatural happening, but I guess it just feels so mannered. I'll just give one example, and I guess this is a very minor spoiler. I don't think it's really a spoiler, but I'll just say like the idea is that Cameron Cade goes to visit this guy Isaiah White's compound, and he's like training with him for the course of the week. And I'll just say that the way that Isaiah White's fans are depicted, right, is in such an over the top fashion.
They're Mad Max ferals, basically.
Right. And it's like, I understand that's the point they're trying to make. Like, the point is like, look at how crazy. I get it, but it's like so over the top that I'm like, and it becomes more over the top as time goes on. That I never really bought it. I never really felt like, oh yes, I recognize that kind of behavior, and I understand what point the movie's trying to make about that. Instead, it just struck me as like, look, let me just take existing fan behavior and like dial it up to like 15, and then like and ooh, it's creepy.
The idea of sort of the whole movie takes place in a location that is divorced from reality in a certain way, and so you never at any point in the movie, as an audience member, at least I didn't ever feel like it was commenting on the actual way things are, because already the movie is in this sort of this place that feels magical, different, odd.
Right. Yes.
We have no connection to like, is this how football works in the universe of this movie? Or is this
Jeff. That's exactly
some kind of strange, some kind of strange, rabbit's hole that our character has gone down, and he's very quickly sort of in a different altered mental state, and so you just never there's nothing to grab onto as a viewer.
That's really well said, Jeff, because it's like you want some dash of verisimilitude so that the audience can feel like, oh, you're giving me some insight into this real world, as opposed to kind of right from the jump, it's over the top and like, okay, this is kind of ridiculous, and I don't know how accurate any of this is.
Well, you also, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the movie starts with a very powerful, horrific event.
Yeah.
That is then just sort of like woven into the fabric of the world. Like, this thing is not the craziest thing that could possibly happen ever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like there would, if that event happened in real life, there would be consequences from that, and like
it would be the wildest.
It would be a media event.
Yeah, right? No one would ever stop talking about that with regard to this dude.
Yeah,
and the whole thing is like, wow, can he come back after? But it's like, is anybody? So already we're like, well, in this world, that's not weird, I guess.
This movie yada yadas a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I feel like, oh, that actually is that's the good stuff that you're kind of skipping over.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, a lot more to discuss. Let's get to spoilers for him starting right now. Jeff, in a now deleted section of the review, you were talking about how this is really a Dracula story, right? This is really kind of a Dracula story.
I think you wanted to delete it because of what that means for sucking blood, but that's not even why I was referencing Dracula. I was referencing Dracula because structurally, the way the story works is we have this young upstart character who has to go to Dracula's castle for some reason, and goes there and walks in, and then now his mind is under assault, and this crazy patriarchal, entity is fucking with him, and and he doesn't know what's real and what's what. Like, that to me is why I think it's like Dracula. Also the blood sucking and then all that stuff. But like structurally, it is that same sort of haunted house. He's in a haunted house. This just happens to be a sports facility, right? And so that's kind of where I was coming at the point of like, we're already in this sort of disconnected alternate reality, this place where the normal rules of society don't apply, but we never get an insight. The only insight we get into how society actually applies is also bizarre and crazy, so you never have a sense of like, I think this movie would have been so much more effective if there had been a dichotomy between how sports is supposed to work here and how it is working in this horror context. And so we could see him like being drawn into the horrific or supernatural elements a little bit more clearly than, well, the whole world is fucking crazy and I don't understand what's real or what's what, or I don't even understand what you're trying to say about it movie. That's how I felt, at least.
Well, so look, I think the end of this movie is a mess.
Yes.
Particularly when it gets to the big confrontation between Cameron and Isaiah White, and it's like, okay, this is just ridiculous. It's virtually incomprehensible what's going on at that point. So few things are explained, in my opinion. So I'm not a fan of this movie. I don't think it ended up being very good. But
also, you chop somebody's head off at the goalpost, you have to try to make it through the uprights, right? When he kicks the head, and he doesn't even attempt to make a field goal. Come on.
Well, that's all we're waiting for.
Come on.
Sorry. One of my mutuals on TikTok is named Mike Bedard or Bedard. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his name, but anyway, he made a very good TikTok video discussing the end of this film that I just want to relay kind of some of his points that he made. And the idea behind the movie is that this guy Cameron Cade has been infused with the blood of the greatest players of all time, and now it is his turn to become the greatest player of all time, and it's passed down from generation to generation. And in order to do this, in order to become the greatest player, you need to sacrifice everything. One thing I appreciated about the film is that not only does he need to put his body in jeopardy, he has his head injury and he needs to like subject himself to further wear and tear in order to succeed and be willing to harm other humans, like just be okay with them being hurt or killed. But they also do this media training stuff that I thought was kind of interesting, where not only do you need to be able to physically absorb it, but you need to be okay with being questioned by all these people who all they want to do is grab a snippet and make you famous in a bad way, and essentially surrender a great deal of your privacy and personality in order to do this. And those are the most interesting parts of the film, right? Where it's like, oh, this is a metaphor for what actual football players who rise to the heights of fame in our society need to do. Okay, so all that stuff's good, but the ending and how it all wraps up is very confused and bad. However, one thing that again Mike pointed out in this video is that the owners of the football teams don't need to do any of that shit. Like they, even though this like greatness of football players passed on from person to person, the owners don't need to do any of that stuff. And in fact, that the owner is thinking of passing on the business to his son. That's like a plot point in the movie. And but the son doesn't need to do shit. It's not like he needs to work really hard. It just gets bestowed upon him. And so in this system where the only people who have an easy time of it are the owners, and the other people are like literally sacrificing their bodies on this altar of this sport.
And there's a huge racial disparity there too between the owners and many players. So,
say that again, Devindra.
There's a huge racial disparity there.
That's
too.
right. That's right.
It's literally black bodies being destroyed, for these owners.
And it exists in real life too. Like the overwhelmingly vast majority of owners, football team owners in the NFL are white. I think around 50 to 60% of people in the NFL, the players, are black. So yeah, it is a huge disparity. And so the only way to resist that is to destroy the system completely, which is kind of an act that the main character does at the end. So I appreciate that as a kind of message of the movie. I wish the movie had been executed better. I wish the movie had been a little more grounded and less fantastical and less impressionistic in some of its execution. But I appreciate that. Like, hey, like on a fundamental level, that's the story the movie's telling, and I do think it works.
I think if they had built up the Cameron character a bit more, like that, then I don't like. I think Tyreek Withers actually does a great job. Like physically, he's very impressive. He also gets he does a good job of conveying the pain and the sort of like insanity of the situation he's in. But I also feel like he hasn't really been somebody who's really tried to stop much of this. Like he calls out when the guy's getting hurt by the machine, but there is a good exchange later on when he asks like, is what's his name okay? And Isaiah White says, if you don't know his name, like if you call him what's his name, did you really give a shit? You know, like
that was a good point. I like that moment.
good point.
That was
Good
nice,
point.
yeah.
So it's like I think Cameron Cade's like trying to deal with this, but there could have been more to build up that character. I wish that ending felt triumphant. And to me, I kind of felt like this character, just everything we've seen from him, he is built up to accept the system in a way. Like the sort of more poignant ending would have been him just being like, "Yes, okay, let's go with this," and it continues.
Right,
on and
I think
on.
you're saying like he makes this big decision. Like I think
Yeah.
we as the audience are supposed to feel at the end, yeah,
Yes.
get him, can't you know?
Yeah,
like,
get
good
him.
job. And
Yeah.
like I didn't feel that at all because I was like, what the
Mhm.
fuck? I don't
What is
understand why this is
happening?
going on. I think what your point is, Devindra, is ideally you want his resistance to kind of build towards this
Yeah.
climactic moment.
Yes,
And instead,
yes.
a little bit comes out of nowhere. Like we don't really understand the significance of Cameron
Mhm.
Cade making that decision at the end for him, right?
Yeah.
Well, even the entire setup of this situation makes no sense. I mean, I was kind of willing to roll with it at the beginning, just as a
Mhm.
suspend my disbelief. But the notion that so he misses the combine because he has this injury, right?
Yeah.
So in order for this team to have confidence in him, he needs to work out for them. But for some reason, he's working out for the quarterback that's going to retire.
Right.
Like none of that makes any. That's just not how
Yeah.
it works. There's
Yeah.
never at any point where he's seemingly trying out for the owners or the ownership or any scouts that are watching him. It's just the quarterback that he's aiming to replace, which is just not how the NFL works, not how
Right.
professional sports works at all.
That's the guy whose opinion would matter the least in this
the
equation,
least.
probably.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Right.
And so, all of that just feels so sloppy and
And you're saying it could have been, you probably could have
Mhm.
restructured it a little bit to make it more plausible or increase the
and
verisimilitude.
accentuate the things you just got through saying you liked about it, which is
Yeah.
like if it had been all about the sort of faceless, shadowy owner up in the press
Right.
box looking down and judging him constantly, and the older quarterback being like, you got to try harder, they're not gonna, or whatever, like that.
Yeah.
There's no stakes. There's no, like I said, I never understand what anyone wants out of this situation. Does Marlon Wayans' character, want to stay on and be the quarterback longer?
Right.
I think he does.
I don't really know.
I think he kind of does. Like, is the thing, and like to the movie's credit, like it is playing. It's trying to be a little reserved about this. It's not trying to spell out everything except for the most obvious parts. But maybe that's just down to Marlon Wayans, who I think does a really good job here. Like he conveys kind of the pathos of this guy who like wears a heavy crown practically, and like has such an understanding of this world, but also seems a little tired of it too. I almost felt like in the final scene he'd be like, "Yes, please just end this."
Yeah,
like, please.
I kind of agree with you, Jeff. Though, like I'm going to read here from the Wikipedia plot summary of the very end of the movie. Right, Isaiah reveals he is part of a line of manufactured greatest of all time players, GOAT players, who gain enhanced powers from ritual blood transferred down a lineage. Isaiah tells Cam they must fight to the death with one GOAT transfusion victor. Cam then bludgeons Isaiah to death with a helmet. End quote. And so the question is, how does Isaiah feel about any of this? Like, is he like super psyched about transfer? Like, does he grudgingly accept it? Because he seems pretty excited about fighting to the death. And so, but why does he feel that way? Like, was he always that way? Right. I have all these questions about what Isaiah's feelings are about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then Devindra, to your point, like I also have feelings about how Cam feels about this, and I guess he's really against it, which we find out right at the very end, right? So I don't think the movie does a good job of kind of conveying all those emotional stakes, and that's a problem. So anyway.
Yeah,
I will say shout out to Tim Heidecker. It is always fun to see him appear in Jordan Peele projects. Like, just get him weird and doing silly stuff. Yeah,
it is pretty funny to see him.
Yeah,
he was in Us as well, right? He was
in Us, and he got to be a little weird and freaky in Us.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah. But anyway, so I think we're all on the same page about this one. It starts super strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really great opening. And I think the movie is overall pretty stylish, like some great. And by the way, I just want to say, I admire the ingenuity of the plot from a budget perspective. Like, the budget is like mid $20 million.
You have a brutalist building.
That's one location.
One location. It's brutalist architecture, kind of, and and by the way, I don't actually think that was a location. Like, I don't think that's actually a real house. I think they built sets that or had sets or whatever that looked like the house. Who knows? But it's all plausibly out there in the middle of the desert, and so and so I just thought, what a cool way of doing a low budget or relatively low budget movie is. They're out in the middle of nowhere. It's a massive compound that's like underground. And so you can just choose whatever rooms you want to make it work. There was a scene when they left to go. Oh, they also remember when they left to go to this party and it's at some like nondescript school. It's like, because all the rich people, they wouldn't want to be showy about it. And it's like, okay, that's very clever. Now you don't need to rent some elaborate mansion for this, right? Like, and so I appreciate it from a production standpoint how they kept the budget low, and just support for that, support for creative filmmaking.
Yeah, no, it really did let the visuals do a lot of the story. Like the whole thing, like where he is getting basically it kind of goes to X-ray sometimes, right? And like when they do the head-on skull collision, I was like, you feel that.
Yeah.
Really, really well done, and really, it's a really brutal thing to convey. And I think that stuff. Like I'm interested in seeing what this director does next. I really hope more people use Marlon Wayans in really interesting dramatic projects. He was in On the Rocks, a movie which I felt was just kind of like mid-tier Sofia Coppola. So, clearly there's more for him to do, and maybe he'll want to show off his muscles more, before he gets too old.
At the end of the day, it is really impressive that Justin Tipping made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.